someone who has millions of dollars in the bank. That's a Noisher Deraisa. So that's what
Pshat. That's Pshat. That's Rash, right, Akiva?
What's that?
Yosy, Mazel Tov, birthday.
Thank you.
Today was going to be another day for you, another simcha.
That's
wow,
right.
You picked a
I
good
was supposed to
day.
make a chasna today. So
My birthday.
I'm supposed to make a wedding tonight. Right, exactly. My birthday present was that I saved a whole lot of money today. To come deferred the taxes.
So now I can pull off. What we said. I can go to Yosy. I'm sorry I couldn't make it to your wedding. I was at Mechis, and I was going to tell Mech I was going to make it to yours. I was at Yosy.
Well, could you have two Zoom meetings going on at the same time?
It's very good. I actually read about it last night. As a whole, you can. You as a host, you can run two separate ones, and you can be part of two separate ones at the same time.
But the visitors can't.
The visitors.
So we can nicht tanzen bei zwei Chassanes. Not the Poil and not virtual.
We can zoomen by zwei.
Mit einem Zoom, right?
Gewaltig. Listen, we should be so soon to get out of this mess.
Do we have another sponsor for today? Normally I would tell you.
Is the recording on now?
Yes. Yeah, I put the recording on. So Shlomi Feintuch recorded this week. He has one more day left, and we're one more day left for tomorrow. So it's Leilin Nishmas, his father. He sponsored the entire broadcast for the week. Leilin Nishmas, his father, and Shmuel Moshe. Yeah. And normally I would tell you that sponsorship is cheaper than a kiddush, but these days sponsorship is more expensive than a kiddush. And we have new sponsors, Heshi Bullman, Lila Nishmas, his mother, Shendel Basar of Moshe Yechiel. Yard site is today.
The show should have Okay, gewaltig. Did we get up to the Mishnah on Mem Zayin and Beis yesterday?
Yes.
Top Mishnah? I think we did. Yes. Okay. So, good morning, everybody. We're up to the Mishnah on Mem Zayin and Beis. This should be a very easy Mishnah because we actually fully analyzed this Mishnah a couple of blot ago. After the Mishnah says that you're not allowed to put an additional receptacle of oil on top of the nair that will slowly drip into the nair as it's burning, so it adds an additional reservoir. I call that mid-air refueling. So the Mishnah says you were not allowed to do that. And right after the Mishnah, Rav Chisda said that this only applies to a nair, but he said it would not apply. And the Gemara, the Mishnah also said over there that you're not allowed to put a keli underneath a chicken to catch its egg. So Rav Chisda said this only applies to putting a keli underneath the chicken to catch the egg. But if there was an egg in an ashba, you would be allowed to cover it over. And the Gemara said the reason for that was because even though there's an Isser Muksa, you're not allowed to move a keli on behalf, you're not allowed to move a non-Muksa item on behalf of a Muksa item, where there's a common problem, and it's common that it should cause trouble, it's common to lead to loss of money, the Rabbanan waived the prohibition of Muksa. So it was common for a chicken to lay an egg in an ashwa. It can get damaged there. Really, you shouldn't be able to cover it over with a keli because you're not allowed to move something that's not muksa, such as a keli, to cover over the egg, which is muksa because of noilad. But the Chachamim waived that muksa because we wanted to protect the egg, and it's very common for a chicken to lay an egg in the ashwa. But to put a keli underneath an egg would not be common because the only reason why you would need to protect the egg by catching the egg is if the chicken laid an egg on an incline, and it's not typical for a chicken to lay an egg on an incline. So therefore, they didn't waive the Isser Muksa for non-common damages. So the Gemara asked the Kasha at that point from our Mishnah, which we could read now. Noist and Kli Tachas in there, Lakabal Nitzoitzos. You're allowed to put a keli underneath in there to catch sparks. The Gemara asked, how could you do that? So the Gemara answered, because sparks are shchiach. Since sparks are shchiach, we would waive the Isser of Muksa because of that. But that keli that you put underneath the nair to catch any flying sparks, you're not allowed to fill with water. And we're going to see in the Gemara that this means even before Shabbos, you're not allowed to put water in, which is very interesting because why should it be also to do something before Shabbos? And the Gemara will explain. If Meshu Mechaba, because it's putting out the flame. But again, you're doing something before Shabbos that'll cause the flame to be put out. So right away, this is something actually almost everybody does, because a lot of people, even if they're not doing it today, they've probably done it at some time in their life. They lit with oil, and most people who light with oil put a layer of water underneath the oil, and they use something like a floating wick. So, and as the oil burns down, the wick hits the water, and boom, it goes out. So that is very similar to setting up a extinguishing system in advance before Shabbos. So we'll have to see how that impacts, how our Gemara impacts that issue. So let's see the Gemara. Fact Gemara, how could you put a keli to catch an air? There's another problem besides muksa. Once the tzotzis goes into the keli, now this keli can no longer be used for what it was intended to be used for beforehand, and that's something that's not allowed on Shabbos, which is what the Gemara asked as well a couple of blot ago. Once the spark fizzles out, you don't even see it; it's not there. So it will not be about the klima echanai. The only issue that might be a problem is moving a non-muksa keli on behalf of something muksa, and for that, being that it's hezeko yishchiach, the chachamim waived that prohibition. You're not allowed to put water into this keli. More wants to know what is the makar for such a big chumrah that you can't put water in it before Shabbos. This is going to be consistent with Rabbi Yosy. Now there's a machloekes Rabbi Yosy in their bone, where Rabbi Yosy is the machmir. But what's the case? Imagine there's a fire approaching your property. People who live in Los Angeles really feel alive. There was the raging fires that were burning up homes, and there were evacuations. So what did this person do? He had a whole bunch of jugs. He lined them up as a defensive line in front of his property, and he filled them with water. And this way, they would stop the fire from getting through. The Rabbanan said, you're allowed to do that. The Rabbi said you can't do that. Why? Because the jugs might get heated up, and if they get heated up, they might pop, they might break, and then they're going to release all the water, and the water is going to extinguish the flame. So Rabbi Yosy said, you're not allowed to be goyrim kibui. Laomer goyrim lekibui osir. Rabbi Yosy said you're not even allowed to cause kibui. So you're not even doing anything. You're just putting jugs of water. They on their own might split when they're exposed to the approaching heat of the heat of the approaching fire, and that's going to cause the water to run out of the barrels and put out the flame. Even that's osir. But the problem is, even Rabbi Yosy only asers it putting up those barrels on Shabbos. Before Shabbos, Rabbi Yosy never asked you putting those barrels there. Frankly, more, but Tisbura, Amor dam Rabbi Yosy, the Shabbos. He only said you can't set up those barrels on Shabbos. But the Erev Shabbos, mi Omer. So who said he would be so machmer to hold like our mission that even before Shabbos you can't set something up? And if you want to say that our mission attack only means on Shabbos, that it's usher to put water in, but avada before Shabbos you're allowed to. For Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, noisnin kli tachas in there, lakabel nitosis b'Shabbos. The ein tzarich Laomer be'erev Shabbos. And for sure, you're allowed. If you're allowed to even put the keli there on Shabbos, you're for sure allowed to put it there on erev Shabbos. And then the second half, and you're not allowed to put water into a keli, me'erev Shabbos. Even erev Shabbos, you're not allowed to put water into a keli to catch sparks. The ein tzarich Laomer b'Shabbos. And kol shekain on Shabbos alone you can. So this brisa is explaining our Mishnah, clearly stating that the Isser is to put water in that keli even before Shabbos. So what could the reason be? And it cannot have anything to do with Rabbi Yosy, because Rabbi Yosy clearly only answers on Shabbos. Rabashi, I feel Rabbanon, even if you're like Rabbanon who holds you're allowed to put barrels with water in front of a fire, because Gorim Kibui is mutter, shiny hachad, this is worse, Mepnation Mekarav is Kibuyav, you're bringing the kibui closer. So what this means...
Sorry. Not finished, I'll ask.
Okay. So what does this mean, Mekarav is Kibuyav? So we have to look for some clues, because it's not clear. So what does Rashi say? Rashi says, Zimein kibu lehedya. Here you're outright putting the flame out by putting the water there. So since it's mechabe mamish, if you did it on Shabbos, it's going to be, will be gorziv on Erev Shabbos. So what does this mean, zimin kibu lehedya? What's the difference between that and putting barrels? It's also zimin kibu lehedya. So Tosfos adds some explanation, but the ArtScroll elaborates a little bit on Rashi's Shita, and he brings down the following. I'm just going to quote what he says in note 16, because he puts a little bit more juice into Rashi, and he says that when you put water under a lamp, it could cause. This is how he's doing Pshat Rashi. It can cause kibui mamish. Why is that? Because first of all, if as you're pouring water into the bowl, a spark comes, then you're mamish putting water on a spark, literally, because it's coming as you're pouring the water. So it's possible for that to occur. So on Shabbos, it's much more dangerous to actually pour water into that bowl that's right underneath the spark, because if a spark comes at that moment, you were actually mamish mechaber. In your Yosy's case, you just set up barrels. That was the first problem. The second problem, he says that Rashi means, is what if there's a spark falling and you have the bowl there and you're holding the bowl, so because you raised the bowl, you brought the water closer to the fire. So if you would have just left it there, it would have taken a nanosecond longer for the fire to go out. By you bringing the bowl up, it brings it closer. That's what Rashi. That's how they learn in Rashi. Tosfos says a different shot. I'm just going to read the beginning of Tosfos. Pirush is reading Erev Shabbos after Shabbos. It was Shabbos yochel lovelu de kibui imagbiya kli shas nefilas and Tosfos. So Tosfos says this by favors. Since it's possible when you're putting water into a keli that you're actually going to be mechaber b'yadayim, that's why it's so chomer, and that's why we also aser. That's why we also aser it on the Erev Shabbos as a gzeira. And now I want to draw your attention to the bottom of Tosfos. The bottom of Tosfos, if I look at the wide lines, I would say, if we count from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the fifth line down, the third line from the end. Umash regilin loses mayim b'schuches shekarin lampe v'noishnu l'Hashem b'erev Shabbos. That we put a layer of water often underneath the oil that we put in our lamps. Why is that mutter? So Tosfos ein zeh kari kiruv kibui. That's not called kiruv kibui, such as putting a bowl with water underneath falling sparks. The kibun she'ein mischaven l'kibui klal. First of all, your intention in that water is not to put out the fire. It's because you want to raise the level of the oil. You don't want to fill the whole thing with oil. You only want to put in a little bit of oil, and you want to raise it to the top. So because of that, you put the water in. Elul hagbiyah as a shemen. Therefore, lo shayich lemixer midi shemen yasa b'Shabbos. Therefore, there's no makom to be geyser that I might do this on Shabbos. And therefore, b'shari afilu Rabbi Yosy v'choshkin l'Rabbanan. The loikein afilu b'lo imayim aser shani toitzes noiflis b'shemen. If you think about it, you can never light with oil at all, because any spark that comes out of the flame might fall right into the oil and it'll put it out. Clearly, that's not a problem, because of course that's not your intention. Your oil is the fuel. It's not intended to put out a flame. So adding the water below the oil should be no difference. Okay, so that takes care of this sugya. Hadran al-Kira, we finished Perak Kira. We're out of the hot water. As the figure says, we're out of the pot, now we're going right into the flame. We're going into Atmana. Okay, Zok Tehelig Mishnah. We're learning now about Atmana. Now, Rashi learned, first we have to discuss, there's two Hatmanas that we had. We had a halacha that you're not allowed to make Atmana on the Erev Shabbos, the Davar Shemosh Hevel. And on Shabbos itself, you cannot make any Atmana at all, even with Davar She'ein Moshe Hevel. So the reason why you're not allowed to make Atmana on the Erev Shabbos, the Davar Moshe Hevel, Rashi told us earlier in Perak Kira, that if you're matman b'davar shemosh hevel, what's going to happen is that you might be matman in remetz, and if you're matman in remetz, it'll come to be mechata, to heat it up. Now, the reason why you're not allowed to be mekatmana on Shabbos itself, b'davar she'ein moshe hevel, is because we're afraid it's Shabbos, you're about to wrap up your pot, and you realize, my pot cooled off a little bit. What am I going to do? And we're afraid you're going to put that pot back on the flame to reheat it, because you just noticed that it lost its heat. So there's actually two separate reasons. The second topic I want to discuss is what does it mean, Dover Moshe Hevel?
Yosy Zalman.
Yes.
I thought the idea that something could be Moshe Hevel means that it could actually make it hotter.
I also
Is
thought
that the case?
That's what I want to
That's not
discuss
the
now. I don't know the answer, but I want to tell you what I'm thinking, and if anybody can offer me help, I would appreciate it. We're going to soon see that Dover Moshe Hevel, the examples of a Dover and Moshe Hevel are things like olive skins, the leftovers, the mush that's left over from the olives after you crush them. That's Dover and Moshe Hevel. Now, in my mind, scientifically, it's impossible for something that's cooler to add heat to something that's warmer. So if I have a pot that's cooking and it's approximately 180, 200 degrees, and I soak it in crushed olives, those crushed olives are nowhere near that temperature. So it's scientifically impossible. The laws of physics will not allow heat to go from the olives into a pot that's so much hotter than it. As a matter of fact, the entire invention of air conditioning that was invented by Dr. Willis Carrier, the founder of the Carrier Corporation, that's the whole of this. How do you push heat from a cooler place to a warmer place? In my home, it's 70 degrees Fahrenheit. It's 95 degrees outside. How could I push heat from inside my house to outside my house? If I open the window, the heat's going to come in, not go out, because heat always travels from a hotter place to a cooler place. So Dr. Willis Carrier invented a way to do it by playing with the pressure of refrigerants, which is not relevant to our Gemara. But scientifically, it's impossible for heat to go from a lower temperature to a higher temperature. It doesn't work. So I don't understand. So Moshe Hevel cannot mean it's actually adding heat.
So I think we're talking about some kind of a chemical reaction that produces heat.
But there's no chemical reaction on crushed olives that suddenly becomes 200 degrees. It's not like a la Briut meal.
And it's not just crushed olives we're talking about. You know how they, you have a pile of garbage, right? It could generate heat. You know, you put it in cool, and then suddenly there's something called spontaneous generation. I mean, spontaneous combustion. Sorry, right? These things could happen. There are chemical reactions that do happen.
Yeah, it is possible for certain chemical reactions to cause heat, but I don't think that's something that normally happens with crushed olives. So I was probing a lot.
It happens with a lot of garbage.
Could be, but the things listed here, the only thing that's listed in the Mishnah that might have that chemical reaction that we're familiar with is Zevel and Sid. Sid could get hot too as it hardens, but most of these things are just insulators.
The Gemara would seem to support your position, because if the Gemara is worried that you're going to be putting it back on the flame in order to make it hotter, that wouldn't make sense, because if Hatmana was Moshe Hevel, they wouldn't be worried about that, because you're actually increasing the heat by the Hatmana. So they wouldn't be worried about you putting it back on the flame.
So I want to add another point. So I discussed this with Rabbi Philip because I couldn't get my head around it. And Rabbi Philip told me that Moshe Hevel means it's a very, very good insulator. It's a very good insulator, and it retains heat very well. And not Moshe Hevel are things that don't insulate as well. So they're both insulators. One's better, one's worse. I guess it depends on the R value.
And the fact that we use the word Moshe is irrelevant?
It must be. And what's interesting to note is I don't think any posek that you'll ask will be able to identify items that are Moshe Hevel other than those listed in the Mishnah, because there's nothing that adds heat. Now, the last piece to the puzzle that I want to add is we're soon going to learn right at the top of Amud Aleph that there's another way to have a tman of a Moshe Hevel, and that is our crock pots. If you put a towel around it, which is a hatmana that's not Moshe Hevel, but since it's on a heating element while you make that hatmana, that's also called hatmana b'davar sh'Moshe Hevel. Even though the medium with which you're insulating is not adding heat, but you're insulating something that's in a position that's getting more heat from a fuel source. That's also called hatmana b'davar sh'Moshe Hevel. That I could understand.
So the Moshe means you're not actually adding, but by the fact that it's there,
Hatmana
it's
in a
not,
scenario-
it's not
Hatmana in a
losing.
scenario.
So in a sense, it's adding because otherwise it would lose.
It's
Understand?
Yosy, it's interesting. I just went and looked up a list of exothermic chemical reactions, and one of the things that they mention.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? I'm
Sure.
sure everybody here knows what an exothermic chemical reaction is, but I don't. So can you explain it to me?
I don't know about you. I don't remember signing up for grade 12 chemistry. What happened? I find the wrong
chemical-
class. I signed up for shop.
Sorry,
Danny Deanna?
it means a chemical reaction that generates heat,
Uh-huh.
right? So, the famous ones are, you mentioned like when concrete
Rapid
sets.
oxidation of natural gas.
Right.
That's burning gas.
Oxidation of anything. Any oxidizing process generates heat. That's an exothermic reaction. Polymerization, when you make plastic, you generate heat. That chemical reaction generates heat. So one of them, it's very funny. I mean, the insulating it with olive skins, if what's happening is you are causing them to biodegrade, biodegradation is generally an exothermic reaction, chemical reaction. So it's not that, I wonder here, you're right that if the pot is 180 degrees Fahrenheit and you put on it olive skins that are 75 degrees Fahrenheit, are the olive skins, the energy is not going to go from the olive skins into the pot because the temperature differential is there, but it might slow down because it's biodegrading and there is some heat being generated by the olive skins.
So you're telling me it's
amount
not the
of
R value, it's not the R value that retains the heat, it's the fact that this product is actually generating heat at the time.
Exactly. So the R value would be infinite essentially because it's actually generating heat.
That's right.
So maybe the thing here is that these things have the potential to have an R value that is theoretically infinite, right? It is not it is not just absorbing, but it actually is giving off.
I hear. I'm going to just bring down Victor's professional explanation to a much simpler layman's level. There could be something that's an insulator, like a very thick layer of insulation doesn't let heat out. But what if insulation also generates a little bit of heat? Even though it doesn't technically generate enough heat to heat the pot it's around, but it is generating heat, which means heat will escape from the pot into that much slower than it would to the air, because it's a little bit warmer than the air. And
Right.
and the warmer something is, the less ability it has to absorb heat. So therefore, it's not going to suck heat out of the pot. So that makes perfect sense. Okay, so now we're getting a little bit of a handle around it. In practical applications, what we use, our moisture levels usually, if it's on a fuel source, you're not allowed to wrap it well, because that's hatmona in a scenario where there's moisture level, which is not directly talking to the insulation, but it's a scenario where there's extra heat coming in. And that's how I understand these things.
Akiva, not Akiva.
Victor.
Victor.
No, you're thanking Akiva for his 12th grade chemistry class.
Yeah.
12th grade physics class.
For a shop. Yeah.
I think Rabbi Philip was simpler.
Yes.
You know, the difference between Rabbi Philip and us is Rabbi Philip is saying shiur for so long, so he knows that glazed over look on the eyes when it's time to stop getting technical. But a lot of us, we're so excited with the understanding of it that we're not used to that feeling. Okay, gewaltig. Zog the hele Gemara weiter.
So just to summarize, so when we're saying Moisef Hevel, it's really about preservation of heat.
That's right. It's a much better preservative.
Or slower down of the deterioration.
Right. And the way Victor explained it, it's very technical. It's
Right.
an insulator that actually adds heat. It might not add heat to the actual food product, but it's adding heat. And since it's adding heat, it reduces the loss of heat by what it's wrapping.
Right. Okay.
I'm loath to it. I don't want to extend this because I want you to be able to get going. I don't want to delay you any longer. But the original problem was that the Mishnah doesn't tell us the things that generate heat, like a Victor says. The things that the examples that the
No,
Mishnah
a vigorous
uses
suggestion
does.
is that they are. A vigorous
The
suggestion is
Mishnah
they
is
they
giving
are.
it.
Yeah,
It is.
yeah. And we'll see them out
The
of
question,
Okay.
the question,
Okay.
Chaim Tzvi, people look
Yep.
at this the Mishnah and say, this doesn't make any sense because how can you have an insulator that actually adds heat? And then it lists a bunch
So
of things. That you
crushed-
would think,
So Avigdor, crushed olives have their own ability to give off heat?
what I'm saying is what Dave said is correct, that these are a list of things that have some ability to generate heat. When something biodegrades, right? When you think about your composter, here's an example. You have a compost, I don't know if you have a compost in your backyard, but if you have a composter in your backyard, if you ever put something into it in the middle of winter, you'll notice that it's not frozen. Why is your composter not frozen? Because it's generating heat. It's alive, right? It's biodegrading. So in the process of biodegrading, it generates heat. That's called an exothermic chemical reaction. It's a chemical reaction generates heat. So this list, we often look at it and go, what the heck? What is this? But these are things, I mean, I don't know specifically olive skins, but it is a biological, it's plant matter, and it's going to biodegrade. And so maybe these happen to be things that they had at the time that would generate heat. The lime, sand, and salt, that for sure. That's how you make concrete.
Got it.
Right?
Salt melts ice, right?
Well, salt.
Got it.
Yeah.
Yasher Koach.
Okay, should we go on? So let's see the Mishnah. Bamet Taimin, so what items are you allowed to make hatmana with? And Rashi gives us a hakdam. Habala salak keder mi'al taking your pot off the stove, off the source of fire. Well, the time of the and now you want to bury it or insulate it in another medium. Even on Erev Shabbos. Only with something that is merely an insulator, not something that might generate its own exothermic reaction. So mihu amoishav asher. What items do generate some heat? So loy begefes. I'm very happy because I think this is the first time I understand what moishav hevel means because of what you said. It's mamish beautiful. Loy begefes. You're not allowed to use. Rashi says, and the Gemara is going to challenge this, but for now, Rashi says it's psoila shel beis habad shel shemen. So basically, it's crushed olives that the oil has been removed from. V'loy bezevel, not manure. Loy v'melach, not with salt. Loy b'sid, not with some type of cement type of compound. V'loy b'choil, not with sand. Now these are all such good insulators that they insulate bein lach and bein yavation. Whether they're moist or dry, they still are considered moishav hevel. You're not allowed to insulate with them even on Erev Shabbos. V'loy b'teven, not with straw. V'loy b'zagin are grape remnants after they're pressed. V'loy b'muchin is some type of Rashi says any soft fibrous matter that grows is referred to as muchin. V'loy b'asavan and not grass is manchin lachim when they're moist. Because I guess when they're moist, that's when they're moishav hevel. Avol tonim ben kashem yavation. If they're very dry, then they're not going to be moishav hevel, and you're allowed to make atmana in these items Erev Shabbos. Iboilu, the Gemara has a strike. Gefesh shel zaysim. Now, when it says gefesh, it doesn't mean shel zaysim, just like Rashi touched it. Avol the shumshimin, but if it was the leftover of crushed sesame seeds, shaper dami, that's not moishav hevel. Oidum the shumshimin, the shumshimin tnan, or maybe when it says gefesh, it even means shumshimin, which are definitely not, they definitely don't add as much heat as zayis, but that's also considered moishav hevel. And then the choshkin is zaysim, and then surely zaysim, which is moishav hevel more than that of shumshimin, would be usher as well, would be considered moishav hevel. Tashma, the Amar Abzer Mishum Chad Devei Rabbi Yanai. Rabbi Yanai said over from somebody who learned in the yeshiva of Rabbi Yanai, kupa shetaman ba, a box that you made hatmana with. So Rashi shenoisin ba muchin, the toiman ba k'ter. So you made hatmana in a kupa of muchin, which is not which is a case which is not moishav hevel because we're speaking about dry muchin. Nevertheless, osur lahanicha al gefesh al zaysim. You're not allowed to place this pot on top of a pad of a layer of gefesh of zaysim. So you see, shmamina shal zaysim tnan. You see that the type of gefesh that generate heat are gefesh shal zaysim. Zok Gemara, and this is the important point which makes it relevant to nowadays. If you made a full atmana in the gefes of shumshimin, that's also osir al tatmana b'davar moshe hevel. But here, the main hatmana was done in something that's not moshe hevel, in dry muchin. You're only looking for a separate source of moshe hevel. For that, you need a much stronger source of heat. So the Indian asuke hevela, if you're just looking for a source of heat to aser the muchin, which really on their own should not be moshe hevel, there you need hevela the zayis maski. There you need a much stronger source of heat. You need zayis. Rashi says that forces the heat up into the pot above it much better. Hevela the shumshimin loy maski. So loy maski hevela. So Rashi says kagoin zesh hitmin b'dover acher, meaning something that was not moshe hevel. The niach kupa ala gefes, the leka ella shagefes maila hevela maila masich k'der shebekupa. So that, I think, the way I understand it, it's exactly like our current crock pots. You're not allowed to make hatamon in anything because they're sitting on a device that's going to add heat to it, no worse than the hevel of zaysim. And that would also be also al tatamon b'davar moshe hevel. I believe this is a little bit different than the main tatamon b'davar moshe hevel in the Mishnah. And for that, you need a greater source of heat. So even something like shumshimin, which would be considered hatmana b'davar moshe hevel, if it's totally wrapped in it, but if we're just looking for a source of heat to aser standard hatmana because of moshe hevel, it has to be something that produces heat better. Rabbi Reb Zera ekloil bereish kulusa. Rabbi Reb Zera ended up at the house with reish kulusa. Chazuya, they saw lahu abd. There was a servant in the house of the reish kulusa. The anach kuza de maya apuma de kumkuma. He took a small jug of water and he put it on top of the samovar to warm up. Nosei Rabba. Rabba scolded the servant. Omer le Reb Zera. So Reb Zera told Rabba, why are you so upset? We're going to learn later in the pair that you're allowed to take a pot of water, a samovar, and put it on top of another samovar. So if you're allowed to do that, why can't I put a little jug of water on top of the samovar? Omer le Hasam ukimikamoikim. If you analyze the Gemara there, you'll see that water was already hot. You just want to keep it hot. That you're allowed to do. Hacha elude kamoili. Here he took cold water that he wanted to heat up. That's going to be a problem.
Sorry, Yosy. So lachal and are you allowed to put something on top of a crock pot?
If it will not become.
No, if let's say you have something cold and you want to just get it a little warmer, are you allowed to put it wrap
Yes,
it?
you are.
You are, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Now,
but
it's actually told in the Machlokes. Rashi holds, we learned earlier and here as well, that you're actually allowed to put it in a place where if you left it there long enough, it would become Yatzilevis, as long as you make sure to take it off before. While Tosfos learns and the other Shem learn that you're not even allowed to put it in a place where it can get that hot. You're only allowed to put it in a place where at best it'll only become less than Yatzilevis.
okay, because according to this Gemara, it sounds like only it was hot already. That's what it said. You just said, right?
You're just keeping it warm.
But it was already hot. Whereas here, I'm taking something that's cold and you want to make it warmer.
Yeah, it is that way, right? So
that's still okay, though, right?
I believe it is okay.
Maybe because it's liquid. It's water we're talking about
Right.
here.
Yeah, you're right. Water is different than putting food. That's correct. That's correct. What we could do, we could quickly look is Tosfos gets into it a lot. What's allowed and what's not allowed. But I think Monty's right.
Just to paint Dudy's scenario again. So let's say I have a frozen challah. I forgot to take it out. I want to defrost it. So there's no problem really putting it on top.
Let's not go with frozen. Let's stay away from.
That's okay. All right. So it's a potato knish that's cold, right? I want to be able to warm it up. Can I then put a towel on top of it? So I want to have a crock pot. I just want to put it on top of the crock. Now I want to put a towel on top of the challah, which is on top of the crock pot. Is that called a tmana?
I'm not sure. I don't know. That's a good point.
What if
the challah is wrapped in aluminum foil?
That's
right.
That's
usually the case.
So the food is. That's what I'm talking about.
Always
I don't put it
wrapped.
directly on. I wrap it and it's wrapped in foil.
And then you're putting it on top of the crock pot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a tmana on top.
So
of it. That's how
I don't know. I don't know. But I would assume that tmana means you have something hot that you're trying to keep it hot. if you have something cold that you're warming up, I don't know if Hatmana applies to that at all. There's the Shiloh of Bishul. All the Shilohs of putting something cold on top of a crock pot is if it's something that's cold that you want to warm up. That you're allowed to do.
Not sure. I'm not sure if the actual kli counts as atmana. So if let's say food is inside a kli, in this case it would be, let's say, silver foil. I'm not sure if that counts as atmana.
Why do you say that that silver foil is like a kli and not like a wrap? Because there is a distinction made. The Gemara makes a distinction. Tosfos actually makes a distinction between putting something in a vessel that retains heat, which is not called atmana, or actually wrapping it in insulation, which is called atmana. Yeah, so if it's in an insulated cabinet, like in a thermos, that's not considered atmana. It's only considered atmana if it's actually wrapped in something. So as far as putting a challah to warm up, you're for sure allowed to do that. But like what you said, you can't put the water because water will cook.
Right. Right.
But I don't think those are shilos of atmana. I think those are shilos of bishul. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see what the Gemara says. Zok tehillah Gemara weiter. The next case was Hadar Chasha. So Rabbi was like poking around in the Rish Gus's house. Like imagine you get invited to somebody's house and you start attacking his servants for everything they do. Hadar Chasha. Then he saw that the same servant was the Paris Dastuder Apuma Dekuva. Vanach Natli. What he did was he took a tichel Sudar Shoresh. He took some type of beged that a person would wear on their head, and he put it on top of a jug of water, and then he covered the jug of water with this sudar, this handkerchief that's made to cover your head with, and on top of that he left a ladle. He put the ladle on top of it, and he didn't like that. No, so Rabbi scolded him. You're not allowed to do that. Amalei Reb Zeir told him, "Amai, what in the world could be the problem with it?" Zok Gemara. Rabbi said the problem is as follows. Hashta chazus. Sit there and watch. Just watch what happens, and you'll see why I objected to it. L'soif chazya, the kama'achale. He saw him a little while later that this sudar got wet, and he saw that the servant squeezed it out. Squeezing out is a malacha deraisa. So that's why Rabbi held there was a problem. So Amalei Reb Zeir asked him, "Maishnomi parvanka." We know a parvanka, Rashi says, is a beged that's designed to cover over a barrel. And they would cover over a barrel on Shabbos. I guess they don't want to leave it uncovered, so they covered it over. Why aren't we worried over there that you're going to squeeze it out? On Malay, so Rabbi answered, there's a big difference. That shmat is made to put on top of a barrel. People know it's going to get wet; they don't care. But Hacha, here he's putting his hat over the barrel. If his hat gets wet, he doesn't want to get wet. He's for sure going to squeeze it out. So when Rabbi saw them putting a tichel over a jug of water, he knew that that's asking for trouble because that's something that someone's going to want to wear. So they're going to squeeze it out and put it on their head, and that's why he objected. Rabbi Agudah Bar Masna asked Abai the following shayla: Muchin shetamen behen. Muchin is something that we normally make felt with. Rashi says muchin would be the raw material that we use to make felt. So it's fibrous material that you get from plants, and it would be pressed into felt. Because of that, when it's not, before it's pressed into felt, like all raw materials, are muchza machos kufay. You can't use them for anything because they're only designated to make felt with. And you have this lying around, so you figured, I'll make hatmana, I'll use it to wrap my pot. It acts as a pretty decent insulator. So muchin shetam ben mal taltlam b'Shabbos. Would that muchin now be mutter to move on Shabbos? In other words, since I'm using it as an insulator, maybe now I'm designating it as something that I have use from, and therefore it shouldn't be muksa. Or do you say that it stays in its default muksa because it's only still designated to make felt with? Omer Leis, Abai answered, I don't understand. Muchin is expensive. It's an expensive raw material. Do you think just because he doesn't have teven around, straw, which is what he would typically use to insulate his pot, he's going to now be mafkir a kupa of muchen, meaning he'll designate the muchen, which is of great value, to be used for such a lower purpose when it makes much more sense to find Tevin next week. So clearly, he didn't have in mind to say this is no longer muchen raw material, it's now muchen insulator. He clearly didn't do that, and therefore, for sure, it should remain aser als muksa. Lema Mesaile, let's bring a raya to Abaye that it remains muksa. Because the Mishnah says, Taimnin begizet semer, you're allowed to make hatmana with shearings of wool, with tzipe semer. So gizet semer is raw when you shear it. Tzipe semer is after it's combed a little bit, so it's more processed. Uloshon shalar gaman is when it's really processed and it's ready. I think it's even spun already when it's a loshon. Lachash tzovan, it's Rashi says it's dyed, and it's combed. So it's ready, it's prepared to be spun, but it's not spun yet. So even though it's well on its way to becoming a beged, you're allowed to make a tmana. Uva muchen, and with muchen as well, which is exactly our shaila. And the Bride says, ve'ein metalkel noisan, yet muksa. So you have a klora raya to Abaye. So come on, that's not a raya. Imishum hala yirya. From this brisa alone, it's not a raya, because maybe the brisa is saying two separate halachas. First of all, it's telling you halacha that you're allowed to make hatmana with muchen, period. And then, if you didn't make hatmana with them, if it's a regular muchen, ein metalkel noisan. So that's what the Gemara says. From that brisa, you don't have a raya because you can read it differently. The second half of the brisa could say, first of all, you're allowed to make atmana, and then the brisa. But if you didn't make atmana and you have ra muchen, then ein metalkel noisan, then they're muksa. Frank the Gemara, why would the brisa tell us that ra muchen are muksa? It's partial that it's muksa. A, and I would add to that question, and B, what is it doing in a brisa that's discussing hilchos atmana? Yochi ma'ila memra. And for the Gemara, you might think that you can use muchen to lean on, so there's a purpose for it other than being a raw material, and therefore the Brisa saw the need to mention that Kamash Malon, the Brisa is telling you a chiddush that muchen is designated only to make felt with, unless you specifically give it the purpose of wrapping your pot, it's going to remain usher. So therefore, this price is unconclusive because it might be telling you that it's muksa even though you used it as an insulator, or it might be telling you an independent halacha that if you didn't use it as an insulator, then it's muksa. Now we have another interesting shaila. What happens if your pillow has a hole in it and the stuffing starts to fall out? Are you allowed to put it back in? So Reb Chisda shara la'adure udra levesadi b'shabbat. Reb Chisda allowed someone to stick the stuffing back into his pillow that was leaking some of its stuffing. Eisvei Reb Chanan bar Chisda l'Reb Chisda. Reb Chanan bar Chisda asked the kasher of Reb Chisda. Matirin beis hatzavar b'Shabbos. In the olden days, when you gave in your shirts to launder, they would tie the neck opening together with a rope, with a string. I guess that's how they kept it shape. I'm not sure exactly how it worked, but they would actually close the base of tzavar, meaning I'm envisioning the olden day beged, which is basically a big shmata with a hole in the middle to put your head through, and they would tie that hole up. So when you got it back from the dry cleaners, you couldn't put it on unless you opened up that knot and untied it so that you can get your head in. So the halacha is you're allowed to do that because they didn't really tie it because they're making that the new beged. They just tied it because for the convenience of how they ship it back from the dry cleaner. However, if you had a brand new beged that didn't yet have a hole for your head, you're not allowed to cut that hole out. And the ein noisnin es a muchen, and you're not allowed to put muchen, which you could use as stuffing, loy l'tochakar, loy l'tochaches b'yomtiv, vein tzarech lamer b'Shabbos. So you, Reb Chisda, allowed someone to put stuffing into a pillow. Here, the Brisa says you're not allowed to put stuffing into a pillow. So if it's already an old pillow, Reb Chisda says if some stuffing fell out, you could put stuffing back in. There's no problem. But if you have a brand new pillow and you're stuffing it now, by you stuffing it, you're actually making it into a pillow. Making something into a pillow is a Gemara Malacha. That's usher. You're completing the manufacturing of the pillow if you're stuffing it in a new pillow. In an old pillow, you're just fixing it. You're not allowed to put muchen loy l'seicha kar, not into a pillow. Loy l'seicha cheses, not into a mattress, or maybe a kar is a mattress, a keses is a pillow. Do we know what that is? I think a keses is a mattress, is a car, and a keses is a pillow. That's right. B'yomtiv vein tzorich lemer b'Shabbos. Noshru, but if some stuffing fell out, machzir noishe b'Shabbos vein tzorich lemer b'yomtiv, which is in perfect support of Reb Chisda. Amar b'dom Rav, hapeseach beis etzaber b'Shabbos. You cut open a hole for your head in a beged on Shabbos. Chayiv chatos, that's a malacha deraisa. Like Rashi says, the hashra kamash v'lemona, the chayiv mishum maka b'patish, v'hainu mar malacha. Matzka for Reb Kana. Reb Kana had a kasha. Ma benzul l'magufas chavis. Now, the way they used to seal barrels is they would put a cover on the open barrel, and then they would seal it with cement. And if you wanted to open it on Shabbos, the Gemara tells us that you could take a knife and just chop off the whole top of the barrel. You can either cut out the cover, or you could just chop the whole top of the barrel off. So over there, you're making a new opening. So over there, you're making a new opening, and you're making the barrel into a keli by cutting it open. Why is that mutter, and why is it usher to cut an opening for your head in a beged? There's a very big difference. The beged that you're cutting open it's one big beged, and you're cutting the new opening. That's going to be called makan polish. But the barrel was already a barrel even before you closed it up. And when you close it up, it's just closing up a barrel. But it was always a barrel. It was always considered a keli. And therefore, you're allowed to cut its top off because you're not really changing anything. You're just opening up an existing barrel. Ramile Rabbi Yirmiyah, Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Yirmiyah had a kasha to Rabbi Zera. Now we learned, shalal shal kufsim. What they used to do is people who did laundry, we do it with our socks. We pin our socks together so that we should not lose our pairs. I remember doing laundry in Camp Agudah. It was a nightmare. You always got back a pair of socks, just not necessarily yours, and not necessarily the same pair. Once I got through those socks even, and I was blinded by their colors. So what they would do is they would actually stitch together small clothing so that they shouldn't get lost. So if you have some stitching that's holding some clothing together, vishal shelish shel maftechos, or you have a kiring, b'habeged, or a beged shutaf or beklayim. Beged, that's two begodim that are sewn together. So let's say you have two begodim of wool that are tied together, that are sewn together with linen. What's unique about that, Rashi tells us? Rashi tells us that that's like the other two. This is something that you're for sure going to be cutting open. It's temporary because you're not allowed to wear Shabbos. So we know you're for sure cutting this open. All three of these cases, they're all temporary connections that are all going to be opened up. So the halach is chibur l'tumah. We consider them mechuber l'gabe tumah. So let's say I have two begodim of wool that are sewn together with linen, and a avatuma hits it. Since it's one item, the whole thing becomes a rishon l'tumah. If it would be two separate items that are connected with a thread, but two separate items, so if an avatuma, like a sheret, touched one of the cloths, that would become a rishon. But the second beged that didn't touch directly would only become a sheni because it didn't come into direct contact with the sherets. It only came into contact with the fabric that touched the sherets directly. And a beged cannot become a sheni, so in fact it'll remain taller. So that's why it makes a very big difference if it's connected. If a sheret touches one of the two begodim, all of the begodim become tummy. But if it's considered disconnected, then if a sheret touched one of the begodim, only that beged will become tummy. It would not transmit tumah to the beged that wasn't touched. So the halach is, even though they're very temporarily stitched together, they're still considered chibur l'tumah until you start cutting it. Rashi says the reason for that is ma'isa moitzi miyad ma'isa. What connected these begodim? A ma'isa of sewing them together. So you can't just say I'm planning to tear it apart. Once a ma'isa joins them, you need to make a ma'isa to dislodge them. But the chimche hitzchol lahatir, if you only merely started to disconnect them, even though they're not fully disconnected yet, goli al yedei ma'isa v'lav chad vegedu. He's declaring both his intention as well as through a physical action that these two begodim are independent of each other. But what you see from here is alma shaloi b'shas malacha nabi chibur. So you see from this brisa that even shaloi b'shas malacha, in other words, Rashi tells us that let's take, for instance, the two begodim that are sewn together by the person who's doing laundry. Even if he's not laundering now, even if he already finished doing the laundry, nevertheless, we still consider them connected until he actually cuts them apart. So even though right now I don't even need these two begotten to be together, I finished laundering them, so the whole purpose of them being together is not relevant, it's still considered connected until we physically tear them apart. Uraminu, I have a problem from another brisa that seems to say otherwise. Makol she'aso yad l'kurdim. You had a metal axe, and it each needs a handle. So you had a wooden stick, which is a pshutik pli'et, which is not makabel toma, lying around, and you put it in to the hole of the metal, and that became your axe handle. Now you didn't fasten it in permanently; it's loose, but it's still it's still able to be used temporarily. So the halacha is chibur l'toma b'shas malacha. When you're using it, when you're using that axe, so I need a handle to be part of the axe system. There, it's one keli. So if a sheretz touches any part of it, it's all tamei. But b'shas malacha in shalei b'shas malacha loy. When you're not using the axe, we look at it like it's disconnected because it's just a piece of wood. So you see clearly that when two objects that are joined together in a sort of casual type of relationship, we only view them as connected at a time where we want them to be connected. At a time where it's irrelevant, it's not considered connected. So oibazoi, when the koivis has his two fabrics that are sewn together, but he already finished washing, he doesn't need it anymore. Why do we say that it's considered like one beged? Amr lei, he answered, Abzer answered Rabbi Yirmiyah, Hasam shaloi b'shas malacha, adam asay l'zarkev l'heneitzim. By the axe, when I'm not actually using the axe, that wood, I don't have any need to preserve it. I'll just throw it into my stack of wood. And the next time I need an axe, I'll get another piece of wood. So there's no connection there at all. But hacha, but a two begodim, shaloi b'shas malacha nami, even after he finished washing the beged, he still has an interest in keeping those two begodim connected. Nichala, you know why? The metanfi, Hadar Machavelu, he could wash it out again. So I remember when we were in Camp Agudah, after we took things out of the washing machine and out of the dryer, things fell on the floor and got dirty again. We had to put them through for another wash cycle. So too, this guy who's doing laundry, he knows that it's possible that the things will get dirty before he has a chance to ship it out. He's going to have to rewash it, so he doesn't mind. He likes that connection, and that's why they're considered connected, even though he finished washing. The Surah Masmila Losh Maitza Mishmeid Rav Chisda. Which is what time it is. It's 8:20. I could go on. I'll keep stop me when you feel it's getting too late. So in Surah Masmila Losh Maitza Mishmeid Rav Chisda, the following halacha that we're about to quote in Surah, they used to say this over in the name of Rav Chisda. The Pumbedisa Masmila Mishmeid Rav Kahana. In Pumbedisa they used to quote this in the name of Rav Kahana. But Amrilah, and some people said that they quoted in the name of Rav, Mishmei Rav. Man Tana Ha Milsa, who is the Tana of the following halacha that we're about to quote? Amar Rabbanim, Kol HaMechubur Loi Harehu Kamoyu. Anything that's connected to something, it's as if it's the same thing. And Rashi again tells us it's referring to something similar to the case we had where you have the launderer that sews begodim together. So since they're connected, it's as if it's the same thing, and therefore, if a sheretz touches one of the begodim, the other beged becomes tummy. It's considered one unit. Amr b'dam Rav, Reb Meir, it's going to go according to Reb Meir. The Tnan we learned, beis hapach, ubeis hatavlin, ubeis haner shebekira metamen b'maga ve'ein metamen ba'avir. I actually didn't prepare this yet, so I'm going to have to move slowly, or we could stop. And I didn't realize I ran that research.
So we stop here, but yesterday I want to just similar to base matter. Somebody's on the line. He's still here. Let me see if he's still here. Where did he go? No, I think he's here. Say hello to 416-787-5590.
Rabbi Itche, it's such an honor to have you here.
Hello.
Hi, Rabbi Itche.
Hello. First of all, I want to tell you happy birthday to you, Yosy.
Oh.
Thank you. Thank you.
Happy birthday. Now, and second of all, I was listening to you shir, you beautiful shir. I enjoy it very much. I don't want to say that I am listening because Ein Horror. Can Ein Horror, you had 14, and now I am the 15th. Now.
Itche, you're always number one.
I know. Yosy.
I was waiting for you to be Nosai. I was waiting for you to Zug Mechan.
Yeah, now is another thing. Your birthday is today. Now, I have a Toisevis in Nuzir, Daf Yidalit Nuzir, Mesertes Nuzir, which you learned already a long time ago. So Toisevis says, by Moshe Rabbeinu, your name is not Moshe, but your name is also Moshe. You know why? Because it says Moshe, Moshe, Shapeku Amres. If you say good, so your name could be Moshe. So it's Toisevis says, the B'yom Hivoldoi, when Moshe Rabbeinu was born, Simchi Gedoylu. In other words, they made a birthday party for him. So now, Yosy, everyone here that was at the Shia should make for you a birthday party, and we should all celebrate it. And
I have my birthday hat.
Pardon?
I put on a birthday hat.
Yeah, okay. So this is what Itche wants to say.
Thank you very much.
Who is Shkoyach? I don't know who they are.
Yeah, maybe we should we? Maybe it's time to get Itche a birthday present for him. We'll buy him a computer or a laptop or a iPad.
This would be a very good idea, you see. But the only problem is that Itche Buch Hashem, up to now, I don't know later, he could still afford to buy a computer, but he doesn't want to have a computer because he wants better to learn without a computer.
Ace Lassos.
Yeah, Ace Lassos, but it says Hefeire Teure Seichu, but I don't want to be Meiferd my Teure. Yeah.
So who's
thank you,
year?
Akiva. Thank you, Akiva. But you see, you were the one. You are the one who told the Chavruse there who is listening on it. So I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I wanted to.
And I have news for you, Akiva.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to you, Shir, also.
Well, that I didn't
quietly.
See. Oh boy. So let's not show tell Itche Bergman how to do disguise caller ID. I don't want him to learn that. I want you every time to call. We know now that you're on.
Mr. Bergman, it's Shmuel Irvin talking. Mr. Bergman, thank you.
Shmuel,
I just want to tell you that this could be a good test run if we can figure out how to make Yosy a party.
Yeah.
And then Jackie Gantz can figure out what to do in a couple of weeks when he is ready.
That's right. But Yosy.
Yeah.
Is he still there? Yeah. Please look up at Toisevis and Nuzir. Daf Yit Dalet 14 Umit Aleph. So there Toisevis says by Moshe Rabbeinu, B'yom Hivoldoi Simchi Gedoyla. So in other words, not only I don't think only B'yom Hivoldoi. Every year, Zayin Ude, so they made a party. No?
You know why? Rabitchik, you know why it says Simcha twice?
Yeah.
Because one Simcha was for Moshe Rabbeinu and one Simcha was for Yosy Zalman.
That's right. Yosy Zalman, exactly. But I told you why. But if that's what I say, it has a connection, Yosef Zalman to Moshe Rabbeinu, because the Gemara says Yossi knows, and everybody of you know, that the Gemara says, Moshe, shapeku omres. Moshe, shapeku omres. You know, you say very nice, very good. So Yossi said very nice the Shia, so his name could be Moshe also.
Gewaldig.
By the way, he's not on to promote himself, but
no.
Itche Bergman is going to be on tomorrow's program at 4 o'clock. Sounds like Shabbos, singing L'chadoidi. So now that it's announced, you can't get out of it anymore.
Now I can get out from it. Yeah, now I can.
And now I see you know how to dial in and the code and the password.
To do mention, mit the Kennzeichen mit der Punim, to do mention with the Kennzeichen in sein Khan, Itche, ach, de kennt man nach von einer Stimme. Weil eine Stimme ist recht bei in der Himmel, in der Room, in der Davent. So eine Stimme is a big identifier.
Ja, okay. Okay, Yosy. Ich habe alles gehört. Das ist top maot.
Thank
Top maot.
you. Okay, to remind
Have a
everybody.
great day.
Have a
Nice
great
to
day.
hear
To
you.
remind everybody. Shkoyach. It's just
Yes,
a
sir.
reminder.
I just want to say, a joke just before I go because I'm about to pop with this joke. And we used to say, Rabitchik, that you weren't part of the shir, but before we said we were worried about. Yosy Zalman was worried about all the socks that he lost, and they say that you know what happens to all the socks that disappear. All the socks that disappear, they come back as a gilgul, as coat hangers. Die Gesinnten stark.
You know, I told Akiva to tell it to you. You learned Rabbeinu Akudesh, he said the tefillah, Shetatzeleinu hayoim v'chol yoim. Ma'az epunim and ma'az espunim. You remember this in Masechta Shabbos, Daf Chuftes or Laomer, there is what it says. So the Welt fragt Akasha, if he davens every day, why does he say Shetatzeleinu v'chol yoim? Sure, he's going to daven tomorrow again. So why hayoim v'chol yoim? So the teretz is that there is pegu before the davening even. So you say already today, in case they're going to come to me tomorrow before I daven, so I told the Akiva that he should tell it to you, Yosy, that the Milse de Bdichase, that you should say this before you start learning.
Mr. Bergman, I thought Bear Schulte said that before
maybe Bear is, but you see, I'm going to tell you. Bear Schulte also, I mean, maybe heard. It could be from the same source where he heard it. I also heard it, you know. So there's no steer to it. But it's a good joke.
Said it over about the people that complain.
Yeah.
About Philip, about he was too fast, he was too slow.
Yeah.
Okay, I brought the Gemara up here, Nazir 14a. This is a reason to get a Gemara. We called it up on the computer screen.
Yes.
And where is it? That's on
Toysvis at the bottom. Not maybe 2 or 3 Toysvis before the bottom. There.
Go to the bottom more. Omer Kamoshe. Design by
Omer Kamoshe.
Beyond Volde, that is designed by other Samchu Simcha Gedoyle. We in Moshe design other Mistama Rabban Nodru Benedev Rabban Zun. So that's right there. Yeah.
Was I right, Yosy?
Wow. Bang on.
We don't need Google anymore.
Mr. Bergman, that's why you don't have a computer, because your mind.
That's right. It's on your computer.
Yeah.
Mr. Bergman,
in OIV get advice wie to this in our computer.
Mr. Bergman, I once asked somebody, we say, Ein Dover Chodesh Tachas HaShemesh. But they had computers back then. So the person told me their minds were like computers. That's you. You stole your mind, you stole a computer.
Anyways, Yosy, I wish you happy birthday.
Thank you.
And till 120. And im Yirz Hashem, the Chasanas should be B'shu Toivo im Mitzlachas.
Amen. Thank you.
B'shu Toivo im Mitzlachas.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So all the best.
Thank you, everybody.
Go to.
Yosy, I want to give you a bracha that you have the money to go to 120 also.
Amen.
Okay, tonight
it's the money, and the mobility.
Okay.
Tonight, 7:45. Thank you. Itche. Tonight, 7:45. There's Tehillim with the Rav. 11:30. 7:45. 45 tonight.
I didn't hear Philip, but did any discussion about shaving today or tomorrow? What's the deal? The Rav says you can shave tomorrow.
Correct.
But my son called it Rav Philip. He said it's today that you could shave.
The Rav talked about tomorrow l'chol hadeis. You could shave.
You could.
Yeah, and if you could shave today, So what happens
when
is...
When did he speak about that? It's recorded?
Yes.
But then you have to keep till Shloishes Mei Agbula.
No, if you shave...
No, it's Erev Shabbos and Rosh Chodesh.
What?
If it's a special dispensation for Rosh Chodesh, which is on a Friday.
Right.
Rosh Chodesh on a Friday, even according
on the thing.
Yeah, even according to Rabbi Yehuda Chassid, you could shave.
Kiva, this is recorded. When did Ross speak?
So you could shave tomorrow?
Yes.
I mean,
I heard you could also haircuts, no?
Yes, and haircuts too.
If there wouldn't be a corona, I would take a haircut, but there is
there's no barber.
Yeah.
I heard, right. So anyway, so tonight, 7:45, he spoke a couple days ago. You can see it up on the website. It talks about the Sphira.
On the Agudah, which website? On the Agudah website?
The Agudah.ca.
It's on there.
Should be on there, yeah. I spoke 2 days ago, I think Monday.
So he's going to speak 7:45.
7:45 is Tehillim.
Yeah.
The world is saying at 11:30, not on a Zoom. At 11:30, the world around is all getting together to say Tehillim and the Parsha of Keturis, and also the Vidui 11th. But we're going to do it at 7:45, and then Bli Neder Baruch Levine and the Sim brothers are going to be on after Shkia at 8:10. So you want to tune in for that at the end. So we go into Rosh Chodesh B'Simcha. Then tomorrow at 4 o'clock we have sounds like, and then 1 second, and then also at 10 o'clock tonight, Shmuel Klein is back on with Seil Rad, and then tomorrow at 4 o'clock, tomorrow at 6:30 a.m. there's Hallel. Where's Mati first? Hallel at 6:30, then the Shir, and then at 4 o'clock there's Sounds Like Shabbos with the Storch family, but of course starring Itche Bergman.
Wow. Beautiful.
4 o'clock.
Kiva, the 7:45 tonight is all the Tehillim that's on the PDF. That's on 11:30.
Yeah. It's the same thing. The Rebbe will try to get through it. I thought originally go pasuk by pasuk, but I allotted 20 minutes for the Tehillim.
Give us Yosy Shkoyach. Mr. Bergman, Shkoyach. It's very nice to hear your voice.
Shkoyach.
Keep calling. Very good.
Kol tov.
Bye-bye.
Kol tov.
Akiva, tonight is the thing. Tonight is is when my sons are playing.
Yeah, can they make it?
Yeah, actually, I just have to make sure to be home on time. No problem. It's 7:45, right?
So so they'll play after Shkia around 8:15. Okay. At 8:15, if they could come. Baruch Levine will come right after the Tehillim. He's going to sing Rifa'inu.
Can we say we got Zoom bombed?
And let him in. I actually saw him on early. I don't know if anybody saw, but I changed his ID and it said, "Shh, it's Itche Bergman. Don't say it." I saw that he was.
You made his day. You mamish made his day because he's desperate for now. He has,
I know. His daughter called me from New York and said, "Could we include him in the program and to do things?" I said he just has to pick up a phone and punch a couple numbers. So she said, "Oh, he's not so good with computers." I said, "Never mind. Swiss bank accounts are all done by phone. They all learn how to figure out how to do things by phone when they have to." I remember my father also figuring out how to use a car phone very quickly.
I'm going to call you later today.
Okay, very good.
All right. Shukayach, everybody. So Hallel tomorrow, 6:30. So tonight, 7:45 to Shmuel Klein. Duvi, you'll come back on. It's a little late.
Akiva,
yeah.
This is a little bit of a crazy suggestion, but I'm just thinking.
I love those.
You've got Baruch Hashem. You have so many things going on. What do you think about putting together? I know you did a PDF of the schedule. Is there a way to put it on the Shul Cloud or something with links so that it'd be easy to find it, or maybe
we have a central location where we can go to and always get everything. Like even the loop is not updated there. I cannot get the latest loop.
I know.
But a Google Calendar or something, where if we had a Google Calendar, then we could get alerts. You could set it up with alerts. You just subscribe to the calendar.
Right. So I have to go based on majority. I know that they offer to link it to Google Calendar, which you can do. But what we did do this week is, and even Itche Bergman slipped. I said, we printed something like a TV guide. The Kent's what TV guide is? And he goes, yeah, no.
What do you mean? You watch the hockey games all the time?
I know.
I have to sign up. I never had a clarity in Hatman of Dover Moshe Feffel. I think your shot is mamish bang on that. It's beautiful.
Sure.
I was looking. I was Googling. Now that the year's over, I'm going to look and see. Has anybody written? There's like the Union of Orthodox Scientists, right? I wonder if somebody's written a paper on scientific investigation of Hatmana. How do you explain this mission scientifically?
But the way you did it makes perfect sense. So let me see what you find.
By the way, just outside Buffalo, when you drive across the border, there's a terrible smell on Grand Island right before you go on the 290. I think so, or even as you cross the border. Tonawanda. There's a huge hill with those. It's emitting gas.
Yeah,
because
it's a landfill. It's a
landfill. There's got to be heat. If it's emitting gas, is it not emitting
landfills? Heat? Yeah, landfills are. There's actually, it's fascinating. Landfills produce natural gas, right? Because you have all of that biological material is rotting, right? So it's decomposing. Right. So while it's decomposing, it's generating heat, and it actually is producing methane. So Enbridge and other gas companies actually have a thing where they harvest the natural gas from landfills. Part of the reason is because methane is a tremendous greenhouse gas. It's way, way, way more insulating than carbon dioxide. So they want to prevent methane from just escaping into the atmosphere.
Does it smell? Does methane smell bad?
Methane doesn't smell, but the other stuff that's going on in there smells, right? But for sure, you've got
Akiva, maybe the Agudah could sign a Shabbos afternoon deal with Enbridge.
Cow farts, cow belching, right? That's the big goal. The cow is belching. Yeah, but it's that any biological reaction often is exothermic. It generates heat. That's we're exothermic, right? You eat and you generate heat. Your body temperature is 98 degrees Fahrenheit, right? Why? Because there's biological things going on, right? So it's just interesting to me, the list. I mean, some of the things kind of make sense. Okay, you've got olive skins and things that are biodegrading. It would generate some heat. I think that it's not a all I'm suggesting, it's not a passive insulator. That may be because its temperature is going to be greater than the air temperature always, then that is something that's going to insulate it better than anything else. So that's
if you
that's the best shot I ever heard. Yes, makes sense.
There's no question. We think of olive skins as 5 or 6, but if they had a barrel of olive skins that was sealed and they didn't, there must have been heat in there.
Well, that's an interesting point also, because if it was pressurized, right? So
it would start fermenting. It would start fermenting.
Right.
You have Boyle's law. No, Boyle's law would say that it heats as the pressure goes up, temperature.
Exactly. As the pressure builds, if you can contain the pressure, then the temperature will rise.
It happens in my body as well.
Exactly.
Vala, pandemic. It's all pandemic.
Okay, I have to run. Thank you so much.
All right.
Okay.
All right,
thank you.
guys.
Yeah. So Victor, just to answer your question, so we're putting out a guide today, literally a TV guide that has the days of the week and all the calendars and all the programs. It's not hyperlinked yet, but the people have asked for the link, and I said I'm not sure that you can't go zoom.com and then type in the number, which is easy enough. But you're right.
Also, if you hyperlink it, the risk is of getting Zoom bombed goes through the roof.
To the wrong one. That's why I prefer just saying zoom.com, type in the number, and the number I kept the same, except for the last 4 digits.
You don't have to go to zoom.com. If you have the icon, you can just start a meeting, and then you don't even have to.
You can just click on
the icon and just put in the ID. That's the easiest way.
Yeah, I have to. Mayor's Shear is having a rough time with, if they don't have an exact link, they go crazy. Right, it's just dealing with different people and then phone numbers. But you see, they learn. Itche Bergman learned how to type it in from the phone. It's everyone. We're not giving them enough credit to be able to do it. But your Google Calendar, I would have loved to do it. You use Google Calendar? I use TeamUp, but it's.
Yeah, I mean, all of these things. I don't use Google specifically. That's just one that's pretty generic that most people have. But
yes. On the invitation, they give you the real invitation from Zoom when it's create this invitation has that link.
They have a link.
It has the link to add to Google and to do that.
Yeah. So, I'm just thinking if you can create an organization account for Google Calendar. And so let's say you would create an Agudah loop, a Google Calendar. And then you could put in on each day what's going on. Right, and people could subscribe to that calendar,
right,
and then that would get onto their iPhone or whatever, and then you could get an alert. Oh, this is starting in half an hour. This is starting in 15 minutes, and then the link would be inside the calendar. That was my thought to make it easier.
The problem with that, Victor, is that we are an aging shul, and That's
No,
too
absolutely.
complicated for.
It has to
for,
be.
I mean, I would love it.
Yeah, for us, I
gotta
agree
be
with you
simple.
100%. But we're getting to that habit. We know where it's at. It's 2 extra steps to be
Yeah,
able to
just
do.
Hey,
yeah.
guys, have a good day.
I didn't realize. Is there a every night? Are you
Yeah.
doing Zoom radio at 7:45?
No, it's 3 days
okay.
a week. It's 3 days.
Okay,
a
I
week.
wasn't sure what the
Okay.
schedule was.
See you guys. Have a great
thank
day.
you.
All right.
Yeah,
Talk
yeah.
to you
On
later.
the off days, there's reruns. We put on Laverne
You know,
and
Akiva,
Shirley.
I wanted to say, Dave Zolti said Shkoyach Akiva when he meant to say Shkoyach Avigdor.
Yeah.
Everyone's saying it so often.
Oh,
Shkoyach
thank you very much. Thank you.
It's
I
like
didn't give.
subliminal.
I know. I thank you very much. Thank you. Shkoyach.
Okay.
We have.
All right,
I told
talk
you
to you
if
later.
Shlomi Zion's on Sunday, I'm really looking.
Oh, that's
forward
gonna be
Wow.
good.
Yeah, I'm getting a video and a clip. I already spoke.
I
to
didn't
this
realize
guy.
he wrote in passing. He lives. I didn't realize he lives in Telstone,
Yeah.
and Telstone was the first outbreak in Israel.
Oh, was it?
They-
I didn't know.
That was the first town. The town. It was interesting because he wrote about it in Ami weeks ago, and I
That was
was
because
like,
of Neve and where they're hanging out all the time.
Oh, duty, that's
Oh.
the 80s.
they blamed it on travelers from France or something. Somebody came to a Shabbos Brachos or Simcha or something and from out of town and wasn't in quarantine. That's how it broke out there. And then Telstone's, a lot of towns in Israel are very easily isolated because there's one road in, basically, right?
Right.
So they were able to quarantine the whole town. It was just very interesting. I went back through all the back issues of Ami over Yantif. Last
Right.
day's Yantif. You read everything.
You're right.
Now what?
Right.
So I went back. I was
Oh,
curious.
yeah. Akiva needs
Going
material.
back to the very beginning of coronavirus and looking
Right.
through.
That's
and
what I
seeing
found
the-
that article when the professor of Columbia. No,
Right.
it's okay.
It's
I
You
knew
have
that
one
was all
job. You have one job. Epidemiology. That's all you're looking for.
It's funny. In retrospect, everything is clear, right? In retrospect, everything
Well,
seems obvious.
hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
But when the Chinese, I don't know what we were thinking. When the Chinese shut down a city of 20 million people, right? How did Trump get blamed for when they said we're going to stop flights from China? The Chinese did it themselves. They stopped flights from China,
I know.
right?
Right.
It's like,
I
it
know.
blows my mind. Like, it's crazy. They walled off a city of 20 million people. We should have said, whoa.
Right. Well, now we know.
Yeah.
There's the distrust. We didn't know.
Okay,
Yeah.
guys.
Anyway,
All right.
thank you
Talk to you later,
guys.
guys. Thanks.
Have a great day.